Is this the house?
This is the house.
Did you
Spooky.
did you do the cleansing on it?
I did. It was intense. Um, yeah, it was like it used to be part of my check-in, but it's like it was the first time I've ever had like a honest conversation with something like that. Um, and I came with like all the tools.
Yeah.
Most of them weren't really necessary. And I took a lot of your advice, honestly, about how to approach it. Like, where am I coming from? Is starting a battle what I want? Um, is there a love or conversation or some type of peace that I can bring versus bringing in like just a banishing, destroy you, get out of my, whatever the. Is that loud? The air conditioning?
A little. It's not bad though.
I got headphones. Um, but
The house is talking.
not on yet.
Cool. How's this?
It's great.
Um, yeah, so I set up like an altar and I started off with like the salts and the alcohol. So I used the salt and the alcohol and I put a little bit of the ceremonial, like special herbs. And I went
Yeah.
through and cleaned the house and had like more peaceful music playing and like clear out all negative energy. Like I was like, that seems a little intense and kind of like provocative. So I went for
Yeah.
like peace and harmony or just like some really nice prayers. Um, and and then went through with sage and then went through with some Palo Santo. And about that point, it was a mix of things that were happening. It was both like a clearing out, but also like kind of like an invocation, where it was both like there was less of the lesser, but also like a really strong presence. And so I went into conversation with that, and I mean it was intense, Peter. And what I can say is that um, its relationship to the space and house has shifted, and my relationship to it has shifted. Um, and I can still feel the presence sometimes. But I think we have like a clarity, maybe,
Yeah.
on what's going on. Um, Also, I have my own relationship to how my own fear creates thought forms that aren't serving either. And so there's been like a dynamic of that too. Like whenever I feel that heaviness come on, or I feel that extra presence, there's an ability to check myself first before going into a place again of like that gut fear reaction, which is like I need to um, do do something
Yeah.
about you versus just adjust something inside me.
Yeah.
Um, this
Beautiful.
this week was like the gene keys. I was mentioning like the higher planes. It's like all about being with like the higher spirit, and I've kind of seen it in that way, and I've also seen it in There's been a few times this week where I've had the opportunity to um, not just like tap into a sense of higher self, I would say, but to come into some type of communion with energies or a sense of purpose, not even just purpose in the sense of like, what am I going to do, but like a sense of without having to do anything, this is what naturally happens through this body and through this being. Um, and yeah, I feel like I have accomplished something, survived a tower moment. I mean, you always survive the tower, I guess. But
Not always.
true. I moved through a tower moment, um, and I'm getting this like read that okay, this is the beginning. Here's the the universe. You're at a climax. Now you are the child. And also, have you actually stepped into the newness of your life? Or what does stepping into the newness look like in your life? What are you still holding on to that we just get rid of, or that you could have gotten rid of, but you haven't yet? So it's kind of a really weird moment because I feel both successful, but also like I can't relax into, like, the relaxation isn't so clear because there's still an ease of of old pattern inhabiting. Um, so it's like I can't really rest in this moment, but I do feel a stronger sense of spiritual self, spirit self. Yeah, I'll check in.
Can I respond a little bit?
Yep. Mm.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just checking.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've just been loving, applying the medicine wheel. And it's like, because even with these, these shorter processes, right? It's like, it's just such an archetypal process, right? And it's like, it's what you went through, and it's this beautiful cycle. It's like, awareness. Okay, there's something in the space. All right, what is it? Right? Let's figure it out. Let's connect with it. How is it coming into form? Right? And then how do we want to deal with this? How do we want to engage and heal this? And then what dies, what falls away, what's reborn through that process. And so now you're back in the East, uh, exploring the newness, right?
I feel like I'm in like the northeast. Like I feel like this conversation for me, it feels like that potential to actually have the sunrise happen, or whatever that is. Like it's the new day has not fully dawned, but there's a sense of like, um, yeah, that there's a sense of completion though.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, my check-in. I'm doing pretty good. Little little tired. I did the journey that we discussed today, and it was really good. It was really beautiful. We went for about 3 hours. It was cool though. Went really well, and the person was very, very receptive and very open, and also just excited about the process, and excited about just the possible applications of this process in the business world as well. But yeah, so I'm definitely kind of in a little bit of a journey mode myself, and interested to see what this call brings. Have some thoughts and some explorations, and not totally sure, but excited to get into it. I also had a really beautiful session with Lisa yesterday. It was kind of one of the, like, I keep forgetting that I had it. It was because it was a really nice one, in terms of, it was just like she did a lot of like cellular clearing and reprogramming, and so I keep being like, oh yeah, I had a session yesterday, right? But it's kind of one of those things, like, you just forget it because all the shit you're trying to forget does just get wiped away.
That sounds ideal. Like you don't have to do very much. She does, and then you just kind of forget it ever there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. She's talked about, like, sometimes like people literally will like just totally forget it. Like they'll come in for their next session and she'll be like, like, how's that that conflict that you're having with your partner or whatever. And they're like, conflict with my partner? No, that's not me. You must be thinking of someone else. And like, and so, in that moment, you're always like, oh, okay, yeah, sorry, my bad.
I guess you wouldn't want to bring it back up for them because you've already kind of cleared it out or healed it
Yeah,
for
it's
them.
like
Yeah.
it's healed and cleared to the point that they've literally forgotten about it, which is awesome. So yeah, I'd love to start with some cards. If you want to start with some cards.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're two of the ones from the reading I sent you on the table.
Okay.
So new birth, guard it vigilantly. So it's kind of like that. There's like this thing that's growing, and it's kind of growing by its own will, but your relationship to it is like that nurturing protection. And so the better you're able to keep and hold your space and your relationship to change dynamics, the more it will be able to do what it's here to do in a safe way. So it's like, it's not about hiding it as much as it's about being with it and being solid in yourself, so that the right things come to it. And there's also the intimacy card, which is about transparency. So really being able to have those honest and frank conversations with those that you care about or those that you're in relationship to, in ways that expand or really help for that union to happen, because of your oneness. And so anything that's hidden or any places where you can't show up as yourself, it's not about hiding it so much. It's just like maybe even just the capacity for that are really important or possible to approach in order to really grow into your own relationship to being one with everyone, but definitely in close relationships. It's probably easier to practice that there or not than with the world as an abstract concept that's hard to know.
Yeah.
And I think we're both present here. I think you're Buffalo. I say I'm Swan.
Okay.
I don't know. It's heaven on earth, and you I mean, you have that vibe today. You have very Buffalo vibes, and exactly that. And then the Swan is, you know, creativity and solo time. You could say like you're in this process of bringing heaven onto earth, so kind of having this grounded manifestation. And so be conscious of like your words and your actions because they're like a reverence or a prayer. And so everything you're saying and everything you're lifting up is really a prayer out to the universe. And so this embodied kind of sacred work is here, right? It's very grounded, very material, but it's also deeply divine. And so being okay, frog, with letting go of whatever is not necessary, not holding on to things too heavily.
It's interesting the way you held it in contrary. So it's like all the rain's falling out of the frog.
And that's the kind of thing. It's like, oh, it's interesting actually, because the rain would like wash it away, but in this way, it's like, yeah, it's the
He's just
frog
sweating
is.
it out.
It also seems like purification, so not quite that either, right?
Yeah.
It's like it'll never reach him, maybe. And the swan, yeah, the swan's just like creativity and solo time, but
Have you read the story of the swan from the Animal Spirit books?
mm-mm.
I've got it right here. Hold on. It's a really beautiful myth.
It's one of the goddesses, right?
All right, Swan, where are you? So this is the medicine card deck. Yeah. Little Swan flew through the dream time, looking for the future. She rested for a moment in the coolness of the pond, looking for a way to find the entry point to the future. This was a moment of confusion for Swan, as she knew she had happened into the dream time by accident. This was her first flight alone, and she was a bit concerned by the Dreamtime landscape. As Swan looked high above the sacred mountain, she saw the biggest swirling black hole she had ever seen. Dragonfly came flying by, and Swan stopped to ask him about the black hole. Dragonfly said, "Swan, that is the doorway to the other places of imagination. I have been guardian of the illusion for many, many moons. If you want to enter there, you have to ask permission and earn the right." Swan was not so sure that she wanted to enter the black hole. She asked Dragonfly what was necessary for her to earn the entry, and Dragonfly replied, "You must be willing to accept whatever the future holds as it is presented, without trying to change Great Spirit's plan." Swan looked at her ugly little duckling body and answered, "I will be happy to abide by Great Spirit's plan. I won't fight the currents of the black hole. I will surrender to the flow of the spiral and trust what I am shown." Dragonfly was very happy with Swan's answer and began to spin the magic to break the pond's illusion. Suddenly, Swan was engulfed by a whirlpool in the center of the pond. Swan reappeared many days later, but now she was graceful and white and long-necked. Dragonfly was stunned. "Swan, what happened to you?" he exclaimed. Swan smiled and said, "Dragonfly, I learned to surrender my body to the power of Great Spirit and was taken to where the future lives. I saw many wonders high on Sacred Mountain, and because of my faith and acceptance, I have been changed. I have learned to accept the state of grace." Dragonfly was very happy for Swan. Swan told Dragonfly many of the wonders beyond the illusion. Through her healing and acceptance of the state of grace, she was given the right to enter the dream time. So it is that we learn to surrender to the grace of the rhythm of the universe and slip from our physical bodies in the dream time. Swan medicine teaches us to be at one with all planes of consciousness and to trust in Great Spirit's protection. Swan, the power of woman, entering sacred space, touching the future yet to come, bringing eternal grace.
I was thinking about, so there's a mudra, which is pinkies together, and you bring these three on top, and the thumbs touch. So it's like this. This is the mudra for grace. Yeah.
Cool. Doesn't feel like the most graceful mudra.
No, it's very like
It's a little awkward.
It is. But after a while, it feels still kind of awkward, but
It works.
it does work. Yeah, there's two more cards on the table that I think are interesting, which are releasing allegiances and acceptance. So I don't know if I'll read them right now. I haven't really decided on that yet, but I think intimacy and guarding vigilantly are in reverse, and then releasing allegiances and acceptance are upright. And then on the other side, we have like the buffalo, frog, and swan, but then all the regular tarot cards are all in reverse. So Queen of Swords in reverse, love in reverse, success in reverse.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, there's something going on. Also the cheetah's up, which is like connecting to purpose or reconnecting to it. And so I'm thinking about like a recap, and I'm thinking about where we topped off last time was, I guess what comes up for me is like, we got to the place where we were able to, the opportunity to like understand what it was that we are coming into, like this new type of form that was possible. So this kind of moving to out, like from this wound and turning into a purpose in a way, but just embracing the fact that wound is always present, but we can use it to be purposeful, to you kind of approaching this doorway or this gateway and wanting to be really, really clear what question or intention we had for being there before entering it, because it was going to be quite the process. And the capacity to use like an archetypal form in a new way to, I think, both to approach the questions or to approach that moment, but also to carry us through on that journey. And so, we could put on the queen or the magician or the animal as archetypes that could help us or support us in approaching that cave or approaching that kind of moment, helping us define the questions we want to ask or the intentions we have, and then also navigating that experience that was to come, knowing that we weren't bound to that form, but we also um, it was an energy or a spirit that we could come into relationship with um, for a period of time in order to see this journey to completion. How's that feel for you?
Yeah, feels good. So do you feel like that was the recap, or do you want to dive more in and unpack the recap a little more?
It could be valuable to unpack that more. Maybe just even using that to presence where we're at now. So if there's ways that it's applied to our lives or things that have come through for us. I know you also posed a question a few days ago, which was like, what does this look like in an application that's beyond just the personal experience? And I imagine that could be something that we can recognize again through our own personal experiences, because that's a valuable expression. But also, I could also see how that could be. There could have been examples or analogies that have come up for us where the application could make sense. And so that maybe that's like a context, right? Using that kind of an exploration of what was to orient to the experiences that have shaped the last few weeks for us, but also that may have given us a sense of what is ahead or possible, to carry us through.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll kind of take a stab at recapping. I feel like, there's a lot, right? We have like 8 hours of content. So, we could recap for a while. And, I think there was a lot that was kind of our own personal discovery and our own personal journey. But I feel like kind of the most succinct recap of kind of the threads has to do with, we've really been working to clarify and understand this new interpretation of an archetypal process overlaid on the medicine wheel, right? And so, we began in a real state of unknowing, and not even, we're just like, hey, we're going to do 5 calls. And sort of through that, the reason for that and the form that we'd invoked with setting these and setting that number of calls, kind of revealed itself in this medicine wheel. But it's a really beautiful, simple process that we have talked about, and it's, it mirrors in a lot of ways, all the other processes, right? Because this is an archetypal process. And I said process like 30 times in the last 10 seconds.
I'm with you.
But it is this archetypal process. So it mirrors, the progression of the astrological signs. It mirrors the hero's journey, right? It mirrors the seasons and mirrors the medicine wheel. But, we've taken this specificness that the both of us hold and the conjunction of us hold and overlaid on it in terms of this understanding of ethos, right? Trying to begin with an essence, right? Trying to begin with an understanding of essence and allowing that essence to inform an archetypal spectrum of how that's showing up in your life, right? So the moving from the east to the south is the uncovering of the essence, and then the embodying of what the archetype we're working with is, and recognizing that whatever that is, whatever we're engaging with, whatever archetype we're engaging with, our experience is spectral. We're experiencing it in some imperfect way due to our own context, experience, trauma, and wounds, and then allowing and exploring how the manifestation of that archetype gives an understanding and gives light to where those wounds are, and recognizing that that's where the light and the gift is as well. And so you following that archetype and how it's shown up, to explore those wounds, to dive into that process, and then allowing that process to allow some layers of our projections on that archetype to fall away, right? And allow it to come into a slightly higher, more clarified, expressive way of being. And then using that, which now is sort of the piece that we're back on, to then step from that more clarified archetype into a re-exploration of essence, right? A re-exploration of essence and a re-allowing of form to emerge. And, you know, I think part of our hope with this process is that this particular interpretation will allow this process to be more interpersonal, right? More able to be applied to groups of people, to organizations, and effectively used to navigate and create profound and rapid development and change, right? Because one of the things we started with was the idea that, like, you know, and from my perspective, you know, I don't think we ever said this, but I'm going to say this in terms of, like, I don't think the world needs another, like, personal development metaphor, right? Like, we've got a billion of them, and that's what the history of, like, these shamanic practices and all of these things have been aimed at the individual, right? How can we apply this process to engage Justin or Peter as a person and help them through their wounds and help them become self-actualized? And so exploring how this process, which has shown itself to us, which has allowed itself to come through and be born through our conversations, how it can be applied at a broader scale and used to actually implement profound change across organizations, which is going to allow for rapid and profound planetary growth.
Great recap. Start there.
Okay.
So my experience with playing with archetypes this week has been really focused, not completely, but like I look at the tarot as archetypes for the Fool's Journey, which is super aligned to, like, one of our original creeds. A couple fools taking I don't remember the whole thing, but
I believe I was sitting with it. I believe we drew the Fool, the Journey, the Heal, and the World, right? And so I think we were a couple of fools on a journey to heal the world.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And this still feels very true, right? And this week has been like the tower. So, like, what does the tower look like? How do I know it? How do I know that I'm avoiding the tower? And then, like, what does the tower avoidance look like? Because I can actually, like, jump into action, and that action can forego the tower moment, right? I can actually, like, kind of try to escape it and make it worse by taking action on it. But if I sit back and don't change, then also the tower moment gets, like, even worse in its own right. And so there's kind of like a really weird dynamic, or it's a very personal and present, almost surrender to the tower, but also it requires some motion, but it requires motion in the right kind of way. If you want to, like, to truly be in that experience, right? To not be just destroyed, or not to break a cycle in a way. This has kind of been my own practice. I'm kind of saying you have to, but I've been trying to do that. And particularly this week or last week and a half has been the hangman and the hermit. And so the way I've understood the hermit, I've been studying it lately, and it's like the hermit is one of the, so there's like maybe 8 or 9 major arcana, which are like the main ones, and the hermit's one of those. And it's masculine energy, and it is the first strategic approach to bringing like spirit into material form. It's like the first like being or entity or like a expression on that journey that goes like, I am communing with spirit in this very intimate and deep way, and I am manifesting something here on Earth. It's Earth and the sun and Mercury coming in together, and this Virgo, so this grounded, practical, you know, in a way, virgin expression and relationship to manifestation in the physical world, the pinnacles. There's a bunch of other energy that comes with it, but I speak about that because it's like the hermit, the whole thing is like solitude and silence. And I think about the hangman, which is like a different energy. It's not actually it's more of like a expression of the 8 or 9 like actual forms. So it's not a being in of itself, but it's an experience that these arcana go through. A universal kind of major experience. And so it's also Piscean in nature. So I'm into that right now. What I'm saying about this is like, again, it's this single figure on a cross who's having enlightenment. And so when I was listening to you speak, I was thinking about the archetypes I've been studying. And again, they're so deeply personal. And they're actually about your own communion with reality, the present moment, or the spirit, or the divine, or God, or even just the entities or expressions that make up that more whole divine experience. And you start off as the fool, or in the, you know, I've been studying Patch Tarot, which is like the child, is what he calls it. So 0 and 1 become the same, and he calls it the child, and that's just kind of beautiful. But it's still this solo journey, and you have things like, you have like the lovers, or you have like the world or universe. You have certain energies that do talk about bringing polarities or a more collective expression. But the tarot in its current form is a system, like you're kind of saying, that is about personal development, and yet you know, I think to understand that, or to be with that in a way that is supportive or helpful for the individual's enlightenment, or its purpose engagement, or its ability to create or craft in the world, is very much untapped from the perspective that I hold in the worlds that I've walked in so far. Does that make sense? I imagine that as you gain new wisdom or knowledge, you can see or understand more, have access to different populations of people. This is like an assumption, but I can feel that as possible. And so with our system here, I see how it is deeply personal. I see how there's an orientation toward it not being lost inside of yourself. It's not about the self-obsession or constant personal development, but it is. I think so many systems offer that, and I think systems that have stood the test of time offer that, because it's almost a requirement. And the degree to which that is possible, or the degree to which it is someone is dedicated to that journey, I think it shapes the degree to which anything they do is like the level to which that their creations are aligned to you know, the highest self, or to the universe, or to, you know, to God. And so this is kind of, that's like a maybe a sub-subject, or a like a thesis, but I do want to just name that, like My relationship with archetypes this week has been deeply personal, and it's actually called for me to step away a little bit from externalizing, and for good or for not so good. I'm not still trying to figure that out in myself, but like there's a it still feels deeply personal to me, and I do think that there's an orientation towards something greater than myself. Um, yeah. So those are just some thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's interesting, right? You know, and like, yeah, in the tarot there are the other there's the more collective cards, right? So let's say the lovers, right? But you know, the work there is either find your place and, you know, correct and up level your polarity in regards with another, or balance that polarity within yourself, right? And the world's like, you know, it's kind of like finding your place in the world. I don't know, the world's an interesting one. That is the most expensive card, and that's kind of the journey, right? The fool becomes the world. And but there is this, like, you know, this element in a credo that I've always held dear, is like, you know, like if you want to help the world, like you got to start within, right? Like you got to go on this healing journey to be able to get to a space where you're not just walking around like spewing trauma everywhere, right? Because it's like, yeah, you can be really, really passionate about, you know, saving the environment, right? And you're going to get your picket sign and you're going to go and you're going to like do these things. But if like you're not a self-actualized person and kind of dealt with your own demons, like you're just really like, those people just really are like projecting their shit onto the other, and it's like becomes a battle, and it's like it's just all these wounds and all this drama is coming out to play, and it doesn't really do much. You know, I mean, and that's what you know, that's what they said like with Standing Rock, right? Basically, you know, the elders were like, yeah, you know, it started out kind of as this like this protest and this movement. I mean, they never used or wanted to use the words protesters, but it started out as this movement. And basically, after several months of that, we had to completely stop that, right? We had to stop that, and we had to just begin a collective healing process, right? And begin providing resources and support and start healing the people that were coming there, because they were unable to action and function from a space of empowerment. And I guess also I feel maybe I shouldn't, like, I don't want to be putting words in their mouth or quoting them. That was my experience of what I remember reading a statement that they put out. So if I got that wrong, I apologize.
I was watching this right before this call, that video for Patch, and it was the last bit of the course, and so he's Spirit Science is like a YouTube channel, and they have like, you know, 5 to 6 years of content. And this guy named Jordan just went through and was like, I'm gonna talk about everything esoteric and everything spiritual, and I'm gonna build these little animated videos that are, you know, very fun and interactive, and they're actually part of my my learning experience. Like, you know, a few years back, that's how I first started to kind of learn about things, and it came back into my life like a week ago. And so I went through this like a 3-part course or 4-part course just to watch and learn a little bit about how he understood tarot. But his last video is about what it takes to bring to step into your reality. And the whole idea is like focus. You need focus. Like you just need like you have to know what it is you're going toward, and you have to focus all of yourself onto that. And because any other way, you'll be distracted. There's so much to distract you, and so many people that have their own motives, and you just can't even. That is corruption in a way, right? If you're not sure what you're doing and you're not sure what you're giving yourself to, then corruption comes in very easily. And it's not, these aren't his words, but the focus was the kind of the key part. But I think about what it takes to have that focus, one. And I think about even my own relationship to my mindset around work or creativity, or expression even, sometimes, and how tied that is to a sensing of the field around me, which is beautiful because it's actually a deep receptivity. I'm receptive to so much, and also it is not. There's not a lot of focus here. I mean, there is. Like I can get through something, and I can hold it, and I'm holding something. I know I'm focusing really tightly on something, and this part of this, even just getting through the series, is like an example of focus in creative expression. And so it's not like a missing of this moment. And also, I guess what I'm talking about is like getting people to actually move the medicine wheel, or this wheel we're creating, requires a dedication and a focus, and even a sense of like us not even knowing exactly where they're going to land, but understanding that the process or this journey is true,
Yeah.
or it's real,
It'll take
and
them
then
somewhere.
holding their attention through all those things, and like even just coming into relationship with an essence or an ethos is a potentially very intense process. It can be very light and fun and easy, or it can be very it you have to be with yourself in a very real way that not everyone has, or you have to let go of aspects of what you think it is that you're here to do or you want to build in order to come into a right relationship with what is real or true for you. And in the form factor, there's a sense of loss, and you have to bring your own wound as well as the wound of whatever you're bringing to form up, and you got to be with that, and be with that in a way where you can eventually look at it and recognize the purpose that this has in your life, and what you're amplifying out, both the wounding you're amplifying out and the purpose that comes from that amplification. And then there's still like a threshold. You haven't even crossed the hardest part in some way, right? You haven't even crossed the threshold of looking beyond your
Week 3, right?
and it's and so this we talked about it in ourselves, like how often we've fallen off on that journey, and it's never been like we've gotten closer and closer to it, or we've made laps around but not even realized what we were doing. But they were like either just the minor and more major laps. In some way we can watch the cycle at very small scales, but in some of the more in the larger contexts that really kind of create like a foundational or sustainable or regenerative venture, as an example, it's been harder to see the cycle through. And so,
well, it's sort of like, what I've recognized is just by starting the ethos process, you're kicking the cycle off, and it's going to happen, right? But it's not necessarily going to happen consciously or deeply or profoundly, but because it's archetypal, you'll move through that. You'll move through the process. But, we've been moving through it in a less, not so graceful way, right? Not very swan-like.
when I think about grace, I think about graceful. Like that's very true. Like it's like a smoothness or fluidity or a balanced or whatever that may probably some different aspects to what gracefulness looks like or the mechanics of it. But then grace is like like an evolutionary force. That's how I understand it. Like it comes down to you. And so even in I love like in Gene Keys, they say like, suffering is grace, which is like kind of a hard thing to take on because you're like, why, what? But in a way, like it's the thing that creates the space or the experience that allows for like evolution to happen. And so this is like the evolutionary force that's coming down and meeting you and both like kind of pulling you up, but also giving you just enough to be able to evolve into it or not, right? To grow into it or to maybe stay for a while and be comfortable, maybe even go back a little bit. I don't know if it's possible, but there's a sense of like that grace and gracefulness being different. Maybe like we can say we've been carried these 7 years or these 4 or 5 years of venturing through by the grace of the universe, because it's like you have something to do here. It hasn't been graceful yet, but you have been through a process of evolving that may or may not, um, that will see this thing through to its end.
Yeah.
Because what it, as an example, right?
Yeah. So I mean, if we are, and I liked, in the Swan, the Swan definition of grace, right? You must be willing to accept whatever the future holds as it is presented without trying to change Great Spirit's plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's this element of surrender is grace, and lack of arrogance is grace. And it's this arrogance that, we're not part of nature and we're not part of the cycles and we're not, I have control over this thing, right? That's the ultimate arrogance, is like thinking that you're driving this ship, right? And it's like, yeah, I mean, you are sort of, but we're all part of this, like this co-collective evolutionary process. And like, you're riding the waves a lot more than you're driving this fucking ship. And so, there's this beautiful letting go that is grace. And so, in that, it's like, I think, we're trying to hold the balance of that. And so on one hand, it's like, we're trying to explore how this process can be applied to organizations as a whole, right? And on the other, we're allowing us to be shown through our experiences, through our conversations, through our insights, what this thing that is coming through is. And maybe it is not. Maybe it is not something for organizations and for groups of people, right? It's like we have to be open to that possibility and not be kind of arrogantly pushing forward and saying, I'm creating this thing, right? And so I guess what I would call and try to evoke in the spirit of that is, instead of us trying to, almost skip the process, right, of re-entering the East, right, of allowing that rebirth and saying, okay, well, we've done one lap, and okay, now we want a better form of it. It's like, let's honor the East and let's spend some time on this call exploring what the essence, the new layer of essence that this lap has revealed about us, about the process, and just our deepening experience, either with our own ethos or with our collective creation.
So for me, that feels like jumping the gun, because it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like we've actually gotten through. Like we spoke like the last week or 2 weeks ago was really the movement from west to north, and we're with the intention of landing in the north to be able to go from north to east. And so maybe you're saying that what the northeast or this movement looks like is reflection. Um, um, but that feels kind of I don't know, or maybe you're saying we should work through the cycle in some kind of way, but from like start at the east again in a way, but do it consciously as a way to get to back to the east.
Well, I mean, again, who the fuck knows where we're actually really at in this cycle, right? Because it's not, yes, we can see the patterns. It's not like a clear delineation, and it's a circle. Right? And it's like even the year, right? You've got days. You can say, okay, this is the first day of winter, but it's not like it starts snowing on the first day of winter usually, or always, right? Like, so, but I mean, we've had 4 calls, right? So we were able to go from east to south, south to west, west to north, north to east would have been our last 4 calls in theory. But I do feel like we're still dabbling in the north, and so maybe it's more in combination with, but maybe we do need to take some time to kind of honor what's fallen away through this process, right? What has been revealed through this process that we can let go of.
So I like that, and I want to read this card because I was reading Releasing Allegiances, and that was kind of like, it feels awkward because it's kind of like this is time for you to go into solitude and release partnerships or relationships because they have served and they have lasted many cycles, and it's time to change the dynamic. And I'm like, that doesn't feel that great.
See ya, Justin.
But there's 2 25s on the table, and so one's acceptance, and this one is called Release the Dark Wound, Let Love Live. And so I want to maybe give that a try and see what it's talking about. So it says, if we detach something from its source too soon, trying to force it to become what it is not yet ready or willing to become, we can unintentionally sap it of its strength and kill it. Corruption. There's a dark wound in the consciousness of humanity which demands perfection and denies process. If you are thinking of publishers before you have even written the book, if you are comparing your unfinished song idea to the latest best-selling pop release, if you have decided you are not good enough or worthy enough to succeed before you've given it everything you got and asked for divine help, then this dark wound has you in its grasp. You have to let go of the death grip of perfectionism and let yourself and your ideas live. Love is abundant, creative, and inspiring. It moves us so much more joyously and creatively than fear. You're being asked to honor the path of your own love. What inspires you? What feels exciting, joyful, and perhaps even rather different? Let that live. Release the dark wounding of false belief. There are countless stories of vastly successful artists who very nearly bend the project that was the making of their career because of the despair fostered by their own dark nature. They doubted, they were uncertain. Was their work any good? Was it useless? They struggled to believe in the right of a work to come to life, whether it was accepted, revered, or rejected by others or not. They nearly lost their work to fear. Undoubtedly, there have been many times when this has actually happened, and the work was not saved, not allowed to live. Do not let this happen to you. Whether something is meant to be a commercially oriented venture or a more personal creation for your own therapeutic healing, it must be allowed to be, without judgment, without criticism, even without premature evaluation. It must be allowed to be what it is, and only time, love, patience, and intention will reveal it. If you have drawn this card along with the oracle of defend to the end the worthwhile, is that it? No, that's not it. Never mind. But I have got, or the oracle of new birth, guard it vigilantly. Then the message above is amplified, and you are asked to act on this immediately so your path can continue under the protection and grace of wisdom. If you feel drawn to read the messages of, doesn't matter. The messages of this card also doesn't matter. It's just talking about the cards. Say the declaration below out loud 3 times. Be in your heart and really feel what you're expressing. I now choose of my own free will to release all cellular memories and belief systems based in the dark wound of criticism, judgment, shaming, and fear, so that my creative, loving energy may thrive in a nourishing environment conducive to growth. Through all time and space, through all dimensions of my being, through unconditional love, so be it. Let me say it for you, Peter. I'll say it for you.
I think you need to say it 3 times.
I know, yeah. So I was going to go like we versus just saying I.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We now choose of our own free will to release all cellular memories and belief systems based in the dark wound of criticism, judgment, shaming, and fear, so that our creative, loving energies may thrive in a nourishing environment conducive to growth. Through all time and space, through all dimensions of our beings, through unconditional love, so be it. We now choose of our own free will to release all cellular memories and belief systems based in the dark wound of criticism, judgment, shaming, and fear, so that our creative, loving energy may thrive in a nourishing environment conducive to growth. Through all time and space, through all dimensions of our beings, through unconditional love, so be it.
Aho.
Aho.
Well, that card seems pretty clear. So a little bit like slow the fuck down, right? You know, I don't think we need like, again, yeah, we don't have to have this thing figured out, right? And I think we can just honor the process and really, you know, in the North too, you know, there's a piece of the North that's like a deep honoring, right? Gratitude for the ancestors, for the collective, for the you know, the wisdom that's come before and that will be reborn. And so I think honoring what we've done is important. Yeah, I'm open to take this wherever you'd like to go. Is there somewhere you'd like to take it?
I mean, what I'm feeling or sensing is so the 2 cards that were for you in your reading are in reverse on the table. And they're about being able to be intimate with the thing, people, but also with the thing that you're cultivating that's growing with you. And both those things are like, in some way, in some reversed expression. Either it's not quite here, or it's this is I guess they're present, but they're not in their full expression. Also, success was clearly on the table for you in the other reading as well, and that's also in reverse, and it's also in relationship to the swan energy. And I'm just like, so reconnect to the purpose of even these 5 talks. Something like the wheel happened to be what we stepped into, and also what we were able to resource ourselves or like to follow and to be guided by in our conversations. A lot of times it was kind of like a looking at it and realizing where we were. So some intentionality, but also some, you know, receptive of where we were guided in conversation, or making sense of what was coming up in conversation from that place of reception. But the container itself was like a question to the universe in its own right, right? Like um, what if anything is here for us to do? Which wasn't, it's not quite what it was either, but it was more like, um, what would it look like to hold a container for conversations that we have naturally? And then whatever came from it or not was kind of like the just beautiful part of the process.
Yeah.
um, um, and so what kind of feels alive for me in one way is like, um, what would make what was great for you, what would, like a clear read for you, show up in a non-full expression. I just have that wonder, not to be answered necessarily, right? But just a wondering about that.
Yeah.
What um, is there an aspect of uh, us um, that like we just can't let go of frog in reverse, or that is you know it is love, but it's not the right expression of love. Two cups in reverse, right? Like it's not that flow that is the emotional ethereal, is somewhat um, taken out of its natural state. It's somewhat inhibited by what's not being let go of. Um, there's just this the oyster. It's like, what is the thing that is hidden that can be shared, that is the gift that has been being created by the grit and the pressure and the time spent together, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think the orientation toward um, leaving with a project or venture is familiar, um, and in some ways isn't present in the cards. It's not there, but it's not really there.
Yeah.
I don't see that as I look around. I actually see things about like being emotionally mature and like not being a lunatic. Like Knight of Cups is upright, so it's like to give in a lunacy would be to fall into patterns or mindsets that are emotional or that are somewhat distorted. But having that emotional maturity and being able to have it be a fiery emotion, so be able to create from a place of a balanced um, a flow, to be able um, to sense what is here and to create from that place of sensing. Um, uh, um, isn't like a wand energy, and it's not a mental energy, and it's not a grounded material energy. It's really something different than that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not yeah, yeah.
I mean, what's coming up for me is, um, we've referenced a lot of what we've done together over the process of this. And, I remember, in the last kind of iteration before this of working together, I was feeling a deep frustration around a lack of clarity of like, well, are we like coming together to do a joint venture? Or are we Justin Peter just like working on something? And so it feels like, what I'm feeling being called for is just kind of a letting go of kind of that past. And, because it's like, okay, so we were Justin and Peter, and then we were Young Creatives, and then we were Extraordinary Creation, and then we were YC Ventures, and then we were the Startup Shaman and Philosopher's Stone Consulting. And we've had all these iterations, and it's like, it feels like to create space for that new life, it's like, okay, like and I don't know what this looks like, but just some form of letting go of all of that story, right? We can honor and recognize it, but at the same time, it feels like, you know, I don't know, a little bit like, two lovers, right? And we're like, okay, well, like, let's get married. And then, okay, well, let's try an open relationship. And like, maybe we'll be a polyamory collective or, you know, uh, just trying all these different things. And it doesn't feel like, we need to let go of this and burn the relationship. It's just like, let's let go of some of that baggage of like all the iterations of us in this.
If I was going to add to that, it'd be also like, and this may be frustrating, so like to let go of that orientation. So like we came into each other's lives and immediately we went, oh, we need to be in relationship through work. And so that was like that first meeting was that. And so every conversation since then has been oriented toward some type of a sense making about why we met. And there's been this, our friendship and our relationship has developed around that core concept, but it's just been this idea or this thought or this decision that that's what we were meant to do from the very beginning. And like I don't know who we are without that, but I imagine it's actually like total swan energy.
Yeah.
is going through the portal of the unknown, but really, yeah, like not just letting go of all the experiences like that, but also I think letting go of that core concept of our relationship.
Yeah, I guess a lot of our connection centers and circles around trying to find context on which we can bring the other into a work process, right? Oh, hey, Justin, maybe you can join High Performance Earthworks. Oh, hey, Peter, you can help out with this block-based thing. Oh, hey, I've got this house clearing. Can you give me advice on that, right? Which, I mean, that's the sort of shit people will just call me for anyway. But we also did kind of try to we explored putting it in a professional context.
Yep.
So what does letting go of that look like? Because sorry if I can just add one more thing.
Yeah.
I remember, and I'll get the line wrong, but it's like, we could go back to the recording of week 1, but it was sort of, we were exploring and talking, and it was like, well, when we get together, we can't not talk about shamanism and business because that's who we are and who we are together, right? Like we said something very close to that.
It's interesting, one thing that comes up is from our talk last week, but also I think I'm hearing this message a lot, which is like asking questions, not making statements in some way. Like statements you want to include in some way if you need to like build upon or give clarity or context, but questions being like the most important driver for relating to reality at this time. By all time, but like this time particularly during like constant change and whatever.
Yeah. So do you have a question for us?
I think that's like the tricky part. is like formulating a good question. Like one is that so that's not right. It's like a statement, but I think the question is like what are we without venturing together?
Yeah.
You know, or what is it here that works so well? You know, or not. Um, it's not as good of a question, but I think I'm trying to get to something that is open, but gets to like a better degree of a form. What is the archetypal spectrum that we find ourselves so often operating on?
Yeah.
And I can think like, where are those things polarizing, and where are they magnetic or attractive? It's can I give a statement of like context?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think about with Ka and I, him and Ellie, the dog, it's our dog or the dog, or I don't know what to call her, but they
The
left.
dog.
they left 2 days ago, I guess, and it's definitely challenging. I've had like days and weeks and months, I guess, of like emotional preparedness or preparing myself emotionally, because I've kind of known, and I've had to kind of stand in that, and that's been kind of this practice of development. Not the point though. It's like to know that you have a deep soul connection with someone, and to have to be able to come to the terms of its right dynamic, and not even to have clarity on both sides, right? But for me, it was figuring out for myself, and then the practice, the developmental exercise of being so clear in that, and also my own intentions and motivations, where I could even take a loss, because I feel like I've lost in some very real ways, and to lose while the other doesn't even want what's happening. It's like very interesting. Like everything was kind of like a no, and yet there was a very clear yes. In that inner knowingness and that dedication to something particular, allowed over time, because not every conversation was well done, but through a practice of communicating, to come to a very clean and clear understanding that let the spaciousness or the end of something really create space and room for a new beginning and a right beginning. Not losing anything that has been, but giving all of that a new sense of purpose that leaves space for the question of, okay, so what is next for us, or who are we now? And even that question being enough to meet the like reality of the moments, right? And so I can say something very clear, like, Ka, you're my best friend, and I love you. That's just true for me. And I don't need that to be like, I don't need you to do anything at all with that. I don't need us to like decide what it means to be best friends or not, right? But I can tell you that no one's been seen this much in my life ever, and I've never been so transparent. And to me, this is you're in. Um, um, and so here I think about that too. It's like there's a sense of I don't like of honoring what it is that we are. Not even needing the other to agree, but also I think standing in something that is of us, or that is so true to us that we can't deny it. That may actually be the the divide. Does that make sense? Um, um, uh, where do we know what we're here to do that we aren't stating or claiming in the attempt to synthesize or come together in the ways that we have tried in the past. Does that make sense? Or like it's like exploration that I haven't actually invested
Yeah.
in. Yeah, to know. But these are just some. I'm trying to. Yeah. You with me?
No, I mean, those are really good questions. You know, again, and in this space, not needing to have an answer. I think it's important, you know, continuing to just allow it. I think there are some elements I'd like to speak to, if that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, like, so, you know, I think there is, you know, like, you know, I don't want to oversimplify and, you know, box in our relationship, right? Like, venture is a strong part of it, and that's not all that was there, right? Like, we went to Burning Man and we ran around the desert and had a lot of fun, right? And went on a road trip, and like, yeah, we talked about venture, and we also talked about a lot of other beautiful stuff, right? And you know, I think there's this quality that I have with you that I don't really feel with many other people, and I'm not sure I feel with anyone else to the same degree of our ability to just drop in very easily and very synchronously. And you know, I feel like you're one of the few people where like our conversations are not really diminished regardless of the medium. You know, I mean, there are some times when you've wanted to like text, and I'm like, well, let's at least talk. I don't like texting. But you know, it's like I feel like we have great phone calls, great video calls, great in person, and there's just this buildingness that happens. Like, we're able to just understand each other at a really deep level and reflect upon and add to and create this really beautiful cumulative experience. And we're almost always able to do that in a really deep, beautiful, meaningful way with a lot of ease. And so I think that's really there and really present, right? You know, even there's even a lot of other people in my life that I can have these kind of conversations with. You know, there's a gap, right? There's a void that I feel is, you know, much lessened when I engage with you. And as you were speaking too, there was also a little bit of a grieving that was coming up too, just in sort of like the grieving of letting go of that vision and of that possibility. And I think, you know, because it was like, you know, as you were there, like sitting and like reading tarot cards, right? We're talking and we're like pulling a tarot card and like, oh, this one's in reverse. And I'm like, yeah, like this is the organization, like this is an organization I want to be in. Like my organization I want to create is like a lot of the characteristics that we embody and we live, right? Like, I think I told you about, yesterday we talked about my experience with my client, right? And basically being like, no, we're never going to create a culture that you actually are interested in and want to be a part of. It's like, okay. And, you know, and so it's like, it's becoming increasingly clear that like, I need to kind of build that on my own. Right. And it's like, spearhead that, and it's like, you're one of the people that I can really see myself doing that with, right? And in terms of like, yeah, we're running a business and we're doing this thing, and we're, we're looking at financial projections and reading tarot cards at the same time, right? Like sort of just the crazy out there shit. And it's like, and I'm okay letting that go. But not really, actually. It's a little sad. It's a little hard, like saying that. I'm like, yeah, I can let that go, but I don't want to. I don't want to in my heart.
But what came up for me was our talk while my last few days in Egypt, and we were talking about the willingness to step in to this like process of venturing, right? And we were talking about like like for you asking me if I was there yet, and I was like the conversation was like, well, maybe Peter, are you there? Like, is that what you want? Is this independent of me, in a way, and that importance of both people making that choice, and also I think where that choice is made from and what that means for them are sub qualities, but also really really critical there, and there's like I guess I felt as I was like, I could feel the grieving, but I could also feel like the sense of success in a different way, which wasn't so material success, although it is in a way, but also like you're reading the other day, everything in it was like, yeah, you're fucking ready, and like, yeah, you fucking want it, and so much so that like the ways that you like you're like I'm thinking about when we like a few months ago when we were getting ready for that to do an ethos sprint with one of your clients, and but it came to this idea of like, can I bring my whole self to work? And today you did that in a very real way. It was like not even a context that was hidden and something that was like business oriented, right? It was like, no, this is me. And maybe to varying degrees, maybe there's like rooms for growth and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there has to be, because that's this thing. But also like that's real, and that's happened, and that's progress, and that's development, and that's growth. And even so much, I'm watching how like hearing how different aspects of your life are actually letting you go. And there's a sense of taste of like, this is how I want to do it. Not even like how I want to tell others they should be doing it, but like, this is what I want and what I create. And like that's kind of like it's like a moment. And I think that's so I feel like a tingling in my head, and I feel like this what could be grieved can also be like gilded. It can be like kind of just there's something that's happened and that's here and that is completely in its own right whole, um, and even on this fifth call of our 5 cycles to come to a place of wholeness would be a really beautiful great completion of the wheel, both to grieve and to allow something to die, and yet the space and capacity for something to be born in and of us. um, um,
I mean, that's the process, right? It's like this grieving. They're grieving, letting go, and if done in ceremony, right, it always makes way for something more beautiful. Um, uh, yeah, I'm not totally sure, right? And as I said, I'm not totally sure I'm ready to let go of this idea that Peter and Justin are here to do a venture together, right? I mean, I can get it, right? And I can get it that like, okay, the process is I let go of it, and if it's meant to be, it comes back. But then I'm like, I don't really want to let go of it.
You sound like Ka. Grab my card real quick.
Justin's just his world right now is people being like, no, I want you in my life.
Just like what a gift, right? And what a like it's like a it's like I know that it's impossible, not impossible, but it's like improbable that I do it alone. And I know that there's something about the aloneness and a deep, deep relationship with that, and like a ability to be relaxed in that aloneness that actually allows for me to be in right relationship. At least this is a story that I have in some way.
The hermit.
But it's like the exactly. And yeah, it's like an interesting experience because it doesn't. There's some like lack of rationality to it too. Princess of Wands, which is like irrational.
The crazy feminine.
The crazy feminine, spiritual, creative energy. And then the moon in reverse.
What was it?
The moon in reverse, which is like there is that feminine. There's also this, the full moon is tomorrow. This is like the time of the full moon.
All the feels kind of just came up.
It's approaching of the shadow. It's approaching of your own relationship, and then like it's also like it's like a universal or transpersonal experience, and yet it is again like deeply individual. Because everyone experiences the moon, but a new moon ceremony or a full moon ceremony is about bringing your own attentions and having your own relationship to this force, and even like you having to have that because your body and your being is affected in a way that is not like any other. It's like the shadow that you're here to work on, like forgiveness versus timelessness. There's such a transpersonal quality to those things, and yet like to make sense of them or to heal that wound is just so individual for the collective, but like through your own individual path. And I don't know if I get another story because I feel like it's not like a need for story in that place, but it's like the thing that I've learned like from the Delta as an example is like you can live 8 separate lives and just come together for an hour or two a week and completely be a part of and create transformation for and with one another. You can decide or make a contract or a pact for a period of time to interrelate your karma so that I will process what you can't process and you can process what I can't process, and we can do it together for a higher good, for the highest octave, for transformation. In that form being so complete in of itself. And I think about like relationships. Like even if you cross the threshold of getting to the product itself, that is no guarantee of anything at all. And that thing that you're with still has to run its course in some way. that make sense? Like that's like what I've noticed in business. Like a CEO won't be a CEO forever. Some founders don't make great CEOs. Not all CEOs are entrepreneurs. Like there's a time for a business and there's a time for people, and there's like this container. And the car that came up, but again was like bring it into form. Of course. And
I love that that deck has that card.
Mhm.
That's so hysterical to me.
It's I'm gonna read it. Um,
Like, I mean, how many times have we used that phrase in the in our conversations, right? Bringing it into form, bringing it into form, bringing it into form. Why are we struggling bringing it into form so fucking much?
Beautiful dreamer, you can imagine wonderful worlds of light. You can dream up so many possibilities. Now it is time to bring those possibilities of light into the world. They need to be more than ideas. They need to live to manifest. The world needs not only your dreams, beautiful as they are, but also your creations. Get thee to thy desk, thy easel, thy computer. Work, beautiful dreamer. Don't just dream, create. You are being asked to honor yourself with a commitment to complete your inspired tasks. This will help you to grow, and that is a wonderful reason to commit. But there's another reason too. You know that your inspired ideas are worth translating into practical forms so that other people can access them and experience something special too. If you've been thinking about writing a book, painting a picture, or acting on an inspiration or idea, then this oracle is bringing you an unequivocal yes. Do it now. Don't dally or dither about the details or worry about how it's all going to work out. The universe loves a bold spirit. Once you take a step, it will rush towards you like an enthusiastic and chivalrous lover, opening doors, hand gently guiding your lower back as you are moved forward. You will promptly be provided all that is needed to take the next step. There is a sacrifice inherent in translating the perfection of an idea into the limited physical form. Although something may be lost when turning a multidimensional concept of endless potential into something concrete, this oracle guides you to realize that there is much more to be gained. You must become free of this inspiration so that you can receive your next inspiration. It is already waiting for you, so on you must go. This oracle also confirms that the information you need to translate your ideas into form will be provided according to the higher wisdom of life, and may or may not happen by traditional routes. Even if it seems unimaginable, when it is time for something to be born into form, nothing can stop it. It will happen. Healing process. Relax and follow your breathing as it flows in and out. In your own time, imagine, sense, or perceive that there is a beautiful light sparkling, twinkling like a shining star. This light is within the center of your heart. What color does it feel like? What energy does it have? What feeling or emotion? Notice the star and let yourself feel it. If you're more of a visual person, you may see colors or shapes. If you're more of an auditory person, you may sense sounds, words, pulsations, humming. That star of light shines, burns, and expands. It brings tingling energy to each of your fingers, all the way from your heart, down your arms, into the palms of your hands, and radiating out through your fingertips. You can imagine rays of light, like rays of sunshine, emanating out of each finger. The process then continues from your heart all the way down through your body and through each leg until the soles of your feet are filled with light, and it extends like rays out through the tips of each toe, fanning out like rays of sunshine. When you feel that light has reached through your extremities, say the following: I am energized and empowered to bring my idea to life, to bring my ideas to life. I release any fear that they won't live up to the perfection of my ideas or fantasies. I give them permission to become what they want to be in service to life. In releasing these ideas into form, I open up to receive new ideas and inspirations. I am helped with this process through unconditional love for the greater good. So be it.
Oh.
Oh,
While you were doing that, I did get the flash of a possible world where we've got an ethos medicine wheel tarot deck.
I love that.
That'd be fun.
I mean, because oracle decks don't actually take as much study as a tarot deck does. So, but also, hold up, Justin. Hold up, Peter.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What are we gonna call this company? All right. Let's start it. No, yeah. I mean, it's funny that's just like. I mean, our minds are very drawn. I think both of our minds are very drawn to venture. But I mean, it was, more so it's like, I don't know, I was just seeing it as an oracle deck, and it's just like, or not an oracle deck, as a tarot deck, right? In terms of, well, what, like, if you superimpose the tarot on a medicine wheel, right? It's like, it is this process that we could go through, right? So, the east, air, mind, and then there's a process there, 1 to 10, right? There's an archetypal 1 to 10 process. What does it look like in that context of new birth, right? And then south, fire, usually. Could be stone, I guess. South, fire, form, right? 1 through 10. It's a process, it's the same. So each direction actually has the same archetypal process as the numerological process of 1 to 10. And, but it's through the different lens, the different context of the direction, the element, the suit, right? Whatever you call it. So it would be a fun exploration of deepening our understanding of this wheel. And we could make one that's just for us and never sell any of them.
Make it, Peter. Just do it.
I might just. Yeah. So, I mean, you were kind of speaking to this letting go, right? Which clearly I'm not ready to do. Let's make an oracle deck, or let's make a tarot deck. And I am open, and I want to express openness and explore what needs to come, and just be honest about, well, I'm feeling resistance in this.
What I when my cards at this point were like very intense. So I'm not. It's like sorrow, the devil, and defeat in reverse. Defeats in reverse just could be positive, but also could just be like a non-acceptance, or like a not recognizing what's here. And the overall context is prudence. It's like prudence is like the overall context, which is like there's lessons that are learned, and those lessons are bearing fruits. Like the growth is here, and you're actually almost at a place of wealth. You're almost at like this material success, but like this is this is what's happening right here, which is like this mental habitual relationship to something. Particularly like sorrow in this deck talks about the experience of spirit coming into form. So like it's the movement from the 3 to the 4 is when like that like etherealness actually comes. It's like this journey to like a more solidness, like a sword, right? Like when an idea comes into form, it's actually sorrowful because spirit now has that wounding. It's the 3 to the 4 in the Aleister Crowley deck is how I understand it. It's really fascinating. What I was gonna, my own set of patterns and my own journey right now, it's like even the idea, I don't know if it's true or not, but like this is what I'm thinking. It's like I take a survey of my life and I go, what things, not do I take for granted as a one example, but also like, do I lean on in a way that takes away some responsibility, like self-responsibility, and I can think about that in so many contexts of my life. Where I don't listen to myself, or I disconnect from the source, or like I don't move or act, or I act or move in a way that's not King of Pentacles, like self-reliant and grounded, and allows for proper relationships with the material world, because I can go into my mind, or I can go into my emotions, or I can escape away into some relationship with spirit that takes me out of like my material responsibility. And that sounds like I'm not saying this is that, but there are some aspects of this that can be that in some way, where like I can look to you, Peter, as like I can, it's like this is not how I experience us, but like I can always come back to this cycle of creative possibility with you. But never actually take the responsibility necessary to just make something like to actually do the thing in and of itself, because I can always believe that one day, one moment, it will be us that do it together. And it's not saying that it won't be that. I'm just saying that that is a habit. And it's somewhat, it's not a bad, by far not my worst habit I have. But it's also like not the, to not see it, or to not be with that, or to not even make room for what that lesson is particular. It's the moon in reverse, right? It's like a denial. It's not looking at the shadow. Even just my relationship, Peter, to like venturing. Like I'm meant to build solutions. I agree with that. And I'm meant to solve problems. But like, and I'm not saying I'm not an entrepreneur. But when I look back at my history or my story around entrepreneurship, I go, where did this even come from? And it was like, oh, this was my pathway to coming into right relationship with my individuation and my sovereignty. So everything that I wanted to be and to escape from or get out of, entrepreneurship was like this offering. This we'll give you that. And I've come to a lot of realization about what this actually is. Like, it is not that thing that I thought that it was, but it is so many things that are so right for me. But if I'm still believing that entrepreneurship is the way in which I'm going to be able to achieve that thing that some part of me is so deeply drawn to, I'm also not looking at the habits that I have, which is like, you're really, really not interested in some of the core aspects of entrepreneurship, Justin, like making things financially viable, like growing an organization. Like, there's some people that just love to scale things. They want to build things. And they want to make the machine. They want to have. It's just it's not even natural for them, but they do it. And I haven't done it in a real way yet. And so I can continue to like hold on to that sense or that ideology, that idea of my expression, but in some way, like I'm not. It's getting to a place of disservice possibly. I'm not saying this is a disservice at all. I think there's a right form, like this. Even just this conversational forum is something different, right? But but watching how the beginning of this conversation was like the habit itself. It was really trying to get us to come into something, into something.
Yeah.
And so there has to be that awareness there. And so part of that, with there's a way where you say, okay, well, let's continue on, and we'll just be really conscious and aware of it. And I think that works. But I think it works in as well as it's honest and in integrity.
Yeah.
Because any place within us that is still allowing the habits to give us some type of fantasy about what is here and what is possible and what it's going to take for us to step more fully into our own individuation and expression, I think is like that has to be, doesn't have to be, but like if you can't kick the habit in this environment, then something has to be done about the environment of the context itself. Um, you know, um, and so yeah, these are like, I'm looking at this in so many aspects of my life right now, and this feels like one of the most not like it's like the most like you're one of my longest term relationships. Like you're like we have a dialogue and a way of speaking and relating that everyone, like even I know the value of it, but everyone who hears it goes like, what is that? Who is that person to you? And because they hear what we are to each other and what we've developed and grown, and the way that we've done it has been so intimate that it is relationships seek this out. Like all types of relationships want something that's here. Um, um, and um, and um, there's this moment where Ifalade in one of your readings told you about us, and she says, um, don't wait for him, because what you're here to do. I won't speak any more to that, but I just I've always tracked that and held that in some way. And I bring that here because it's like affirmation to me, or like oracleness, that like what you're here to do, once you have chosen to do it, and it sounds like you're damn near close, like you're so if you're not there, you're like there, you're like at this threshold, is it pours from you. um um and I just uh, yeah, I don't know, it's just
Yeah. I mean, I love everything you said. And I think Hippolyte also said, like, yes, Justin's a part of this, right? But don't wait on him.
mm,
And so there's an element, and I mean, part of it too is like, I don't want to just build something on my own, right? Like where I'm coming into and where I'm at is like, I want to be doing work that's deep and meaningful and fulfilling with the people that I care about and that inspire me, right? It's like, um, you know, like, yes, I want to make a comfortable living, and yes, I want to create something with impact, and yes, I want to do all of these things. And more so than any of that, I want to be in a culture and in a community that is beautiful and fulfilling, right? And where I'm connecting and I'm uplifting. It's always been one of my visions. I'm like, man, I wish I could just like give everyone I love jobs, right? Like that's always been like a fantasy of mine. It's like everyone's always bitching about their work, and I'm like, fuck, man, like I wish I had a stable enough business to be able to give you a job. But I don't just want to just give people jobs, right? It's like I want to be co-creating with the people that are important and I have deep, meaningful connection with, and you're one of those people. And I also want to honor your journey and your path, right? And if you're like, well, I need to go sit in the woods and meditate for a couple of years, or well, I need to take a job at Goldman Sachs and work on Wall Street for a couple of years. Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, whatever your journey is, like, that's for you to decide. And like, I'm not going to sit here and say, build a venture with me. But that is something I desire.
So do I. and you know, when I hear you speak, and as I was reading the cards here, as they were, you know, it was like, is anything about like your gene keys? Like you have a line 1 for your vocation, which is like production, which means like you're designed to build what spirit and the divine move you to build, and to do it in a way that is completely individual. And then like everyone else comes along to support or bring that thing further, right? So you build it and you're like, well, I don't know what to do with this thing now that I have it built, right? Because you need like the marketer, you need the salesperson, and you need the philanthropist to invest or to, you know, help you with the ethics, and you know, you need a team, but you're the beginning, you're the starting. You also have a line 5 culture, which is society. So like you're not like in partnership, and you're not partnership isn't your jam. Neither is the unit. So like a 15-person team, neither is a network, but society. So like you're meant to like look out in the world and say, what the fuck is broken? And then that inspires or moves you, and you create something.
Society.
Yeah. But you know, but
society is what I see is broken in society.
But that's the thing, right? You're saying that you want to build something that where your friends can have work and jobs, and you want to be able to have that thing exist so that they are able to plug into it in ways that are meaningful and aligned to them, but also feed into or build or develop the culture that you see as possible, the society that you hold as an ideal. And it's like I don't have those values. That's not what motivates me. I don't even think about building something like in that way. So like, there's a very particular calling that's in you that no organization that you have been a part of, although you have like fed them and helped them grow and orient toward the possibility, has been able to even hold of you, because like it's it's you. It's such a distinct and unique aspect and calling of you, and that's just like so cool. and I just to be clear, like there's no doubt in my mind that if you have an organization, that you will create space for me to be a part of it in some way, right? And there's no doubt in my mind. We know this. We know that we will always think of the other to come in and be in relationship with a venture. And we always know that we will find a way to try to make it work. And we always know that even if it doesn't work out, that we will come back together, because what we have is like resilient, right? So there's so many things that we have built and developed and we can trust that I feel so secure in. So it's not like a question that's there, you know? It's just like the almost like the question of like and can I wait for the right thing? It's not quite the question. My heart would kind of like close on that one, but it's like there's something that's there that's like a really particular thing. And I also want to say, like, I don't take this as like a never gonna talk to you again. We can like decide to do more of these calls, right? Like we can pick a form that works. But I think I do feel that like I do feel that like um um that like I like I love you with so much of my heart and my body and my being. Um, and there's so much gratitude for um, the way that you accept me as I am in so many different expressions, and you do it in this like it often seems so effortless. There's time for it's effortful, and we've like been with those things, but so often it's just like this um, pure intention of acceptance, or this pure intention of like relating, or of just I don't even know what the best word is for it, but it's like this light that um, makes me want to grow. It makes me want to accept myself more, or like makes me want to be able to have that capacity, or to even just like to honor the like the that I don't know how to even put that, but it's just like so tangible for me, and it's something that I don't find in many people. I don't know if I found it in anyone else like you, like you. And um, it's like this form of love that is uh, unconditional. Um, is what it feels like so often. Um,
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
yeah. Wah, wah. Now I feel awkward.
Well, I did have one question for you.
Cool.
Sort of in this, because you were speaking about, you were saying, okay, well, all these things that motivate Peter, right? And you're like, and those things don't motivate me at all. Right? So I'm curious, like, what motivates you?
um, it's a great question, and I'm asking myself that a lot. I'm asking what drives my actions, what keeps me going, what am I moving towards, and I think it's really interesting because like the Hangman just came out, because that's literally it, right? It's like, and I love this Hangman because it's so tech. It's like not tech, but it's very tech. Like this evolved kind of form of like, I don't know. It's so interesting. With the squares, it reminds me of like this future. But when I think about what I think about, it's almost always um, like an enlightenment, right? It's like this this um, movement from being my own worst enemy to truly being free, to embrace the turbulence and the conflict inherent in my life, and to actually come into a state of like of full acceptance of everyone everywhere, because I have come into this body and this human experience in such a whole way. And there's a relationship to like anything being the possibility for that to happen in some way. And there's also a relationship to like that not being true too. Like it, each thing can carry you to a certain place, and carry you so far and be a very particular expression of it. But then there's a truth to the limit of that, that I've experienced. Yeah, it's like my sun and my moon are Pisces and Virgo, like, and they're opposites. They're like it's like this force of two, like, just and it's just what I am in. And my experience is one where it's like grounded, material, practical, like just the possibility and the potential of spirit and form, the Hierophant as well, right? So it's like teacher, a new paradigm-ness with the energy of like been through it, know it all alpha and omega, Piscean, like this, it's all the zodiacs are of Pisces and returning to Pisces. And that, I mean, like with the ego, I mean this in the sense of like, the thing that the things that I feel and that I am in a relationship to are so unsettled all the time, and so not of this moment, and yet required to be. That there isn't, it's really never about anyone else, and yet it is in the deepest service that I could imagine, because there's a thing that I know about my energetic role in the evolution of humanity, but also like of a universal evolution that I'm here to play, that is of the deepest service I can imagine. But even the dynamic of that transpersonal and that individuation or sovereignty is just this, it's just fascinating. So everything that I'm doing is inquiry into that, and coming in and out of thinking that anything is mine or for me, and yet finding myself being able to, the requirement of coming into relationship with everything as if it is that. So the motivation isn't so clear as like a statement, but there is like the motivation, like that's the driver. And I'm just trying to practice allowing myself to receive and to create in this process, because it's just the constant. And so whenever I don't do that, or I don't create here, I lose the ability to like be of immediate service in some way, but also to like, let's say, gain financial prosperity based off of the truth, like me being in my truth, right? Because I'm denying, like it's like I'm hiding my truth because of how unclean, how unpolished it is, or how dynamic it is, or how whatever these things are, right? But that expression, or that standing in that, or that I think that actually is what can attract what I need. So this is just some things that I'm really sitting with in a way. Yeah, like the hermit doesn't hide. The hermit shines their light. Like the hermit holds the star as what it's in his hand, right? And so it's like holding this light out in the world, and this light of like fertile creation and manifestation and form, but it does it in this like very individuated way, and it does it in direct relationship with like the divine. It's a vehicle of spirit and in the earth, in that translation or that conversation happening, and it does it in this like in honor of the lovers, of like the oppositions or the more wholeness of perceived polarities, coming into a right relationship or marriage.
Well, I followed some of that.
Perfect.
I don't think I was necessarily supposed to follow all of it.
This is what I'm in right now, Peter. This is
Yeah.
this is where I'm at.
Well, can I point to one thing And then we can close if we want, or we can continue to explore. I know we're coming up on, we're at 2 hours now.
Yep.
But you know, kind of as you're speaking about me, and because of as I've been ruminating, right? You know, we have been using ethos in this process, right? And part of this this process is moving into a deeper understanding of essence. And I guess I no longer feel like it's jumping the gun. And if it is, I'm going to jump the gun. But as you were speaking about it, right, or about me, and kind of talking about me, and you know, kind of in combination with my reflecting, right? It's like, so my ethos statement was sort of like previously it was something along the lines of awakening awakening and allowing the possibilities in others so that they can bring their unique gifts to the world, right? And you know, I think that's true, right? And I think that's that does capture it, but a deeper understanding of it is what you're speaking to with this. Like, it's an acceptance and it's a permission, right? And like really what I feel like I want to be doing, and like the work, you know, that I've been talking about and working on my own through this process is like, you know, getting to this point of deep acceptance of myself, right? But like that I feel like is the medicine that I personally am wanting, right? Which is what we talked about last week. Is like the ethos is sort of like a hey, spoiler alert, that's actually like, hey, spoiler alert, my mic's over here. Like that's actually what you want. And so, you know, so it's like I really want that deep acceptance of self. And so, you know, I'm trying to give that to others. But it's like this really deep permission. It's like, hey, like I want you to show up exactly as who you are, and I want to empower you to continue to discover that. And it's like, it's just that dichotomy, right? You know, and that's like with you know, my client that we've been talking about, the one with the tension. It's like, well, when I'm talking to, you know, people who are you know, I'm supervising, right? I hold a superior role to in the organization, which is kind of one of those things that I'm like that's a load of bullshit too. But you know, they're like, hey, how should I do this thing? And like my answer is always like, well, like how do you want to do it, right? Like really giving them permission to like, hey, like we want you to be fulfilled, we want you to be empowered, you know, we want you to be bringing your unique gifts to this organization so that you can shine, you can thrive, and we can get the best of you. And so it's like, it's not me telling you, well, here's how to do it. Like if you want, it's like, maybe here's how I would do it, here's a way to do it, but like really challenging people to say, to define their own role and to define how they want to do things in the world. And so this new person coming in and being like, everyone does this way, and I'm going to micromanage and, you know, monitor all the communications and, you know, say you have to do this in this way, even though you know, even if you think you know better, you don't. I know best, right? Like, and that is just so antithetical to how I try to show up, that it's like this very real conflict. But it's like, I feel like through this process, you know, I've come to a deeper understanding of that ethos, and that it is around that, like that deep acceptance and empowerment, right? And you know, that's what I want for myself, and that's what I want to bring to others. You know, help bring to the world, and bring to my community, right? And use that deep acceptance and exploration to push the boundaries of what's possible, right? Because when you start getting into that authenticity, you start realizing, well, like hey, like a lot of these societal things that we do, they don't feel so good to me at a deep level. Like I'm actually called to do things differently, right? Um, and you know, that's what I want to explore. You know, how we can live differently. And you know, for me, having the people that I care about on that journey with me is deeply important. So, I guess a very long way of saying, well, if I recall correctly, your ethos statements at the start of this were presencing human connection and masterfully grounding vision.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if there's any deeper awareness that you can speak to in that's come out through this conversational process and even this conversation today, that can help enlighten, you know, what you're desiring and what you're wanting to bring to the world. You know, what's motivating you, right?
You know what? If I was to use the language of my ethos statement, I think across the conversation, across this, you know, this multi-week conversation, but also this conversation, that practice has come up, which is like listening to what's being said, listening to the context, watching the flow of narrative, and then going, but like, this is what I'm noticing here. Let me make this present, and I can use it through, you know, tarot and divination as a great way to like give me language or words that are more precise, or at least help me to keep a pulse on what I'm understanding, so it can go from that emotional sensing, or that this is kind of more details, but like that presence of human connection is actually like I'm getting more and more skillful and getting more and more tools about how to do that, like both for myself. So how am I connected to others, but also in these kind of conversations or dynamics. And so I really feel that here. And then masterfully grounding visions. It's like, I mean, in some way, again, like this is that. There's a sense of like, oh, Peter and I should do a thing. Like it kind of came down during a tarot reading, and I was like, let's do that. And now I feel like it's actually grounded, and like, this could even be a seed planted that we may not fully understand, right? But like, it's like landed, and now we're kind of in the mental space a lot right now, but like it's also kind of like our feet are on the earth, and we're kind of looking out at the world ahead of us and going, okay, well, like where do I walk from here, and what may grow. But what I know, or what I'm watching, is like this process we've gone through is a new way of understanding what it looks like to relate to vision as a concept, and then to look at what it means, what a process for grounding it would be like. So how do you take what is ephemeral, an idea, a concept, a feeling, an intuitive hit, an ethos, come into relationship with it, and then bring it through a cycle that creates a foundation, or it plants a seed, or whatever that looks like at different stages. But like, I have a sense of that now, and I have a sense of how that's not only related to like the medicine wheel, the four directions, but also how tarot, or how shadow work, or how archetypal forms, how all these nisses are related to it, and how they can be plugged in to this process. And I still think that as the startup shaman, I can go out and try to shaman people's startups, or I can do that shit myself, because how else will I know? And if I don't, I need to be able to come into relationship with the energies and the entities and the essences, the ethoses that are here. And if people who are looking for that come, I will most likely already know exactly how to be with them, because I'm in relationship with what's attracting them, or what they're feeling called to, or at least I know how to access that. And so like in my 5-2 way, you know, in my heretical hermit, in this expression, it's like, you know, the shaman lives on the edge of town, and he's here for everyone. He's here for the people, but he's not he's not relating to them in that way. And so I'm really like that process is probably a greater context of Tower. And it's probably about a 2-year timeline before that actually comes about fully. But I'm quite aware of the inescapable relationship that's going to come from me truly being present, of humanity's connections and the capacity and capability to ground this greater vision that is coming through like our species. And I'm not sure what my role is in that. I'm not sure to what capacity. I'm sure there's probably a lot of possibility or unknowns there. I'm sure I'm one of many archetypes that could possibly step into a certain frequency of role. And you know, I'm uh, uh, no one can know that like I can. And anytime I corrupt or I compromise, you know, that knowingness, you know, for me is an inner knowing. I'm taking myself out of the game a little bit, or I'm confusing what it is that is coming through my imagination, or that is illuminating or showing me what it looks like to be lit up from the outside in. Yeah, so here and now, and these 5 weeks have been just it's like the conversation sparked the process, and they give a larger framework, but also I think in ways I can't even fully review right now, they've shaped the choices I made throughout the week. And I found myself getting closer and closer and closer to the way that I want to be, like what it requires for me to do my work in the world. Um, um, yeah, it wasn't quite a full answer, but
Yeah. No, I mean, it doesn't have to be, right? That's the whole, or at least that's one of my fundamental principles of this whole thing, is like, there's no stopping point. There's no definite answers. You don't say, here's my ethos, I'm writing it on the wall, I'm done. All right, cool. Got that figured out, right? It's like, it's peeling the onion, deepening the layers of understanding. And I mean, I'll second you know what you said, and again, not trying to be arrogant, right? And recognizing that there's an element of well, we chose to do this process in this time, in this timeline, because we intuitively recognized that that we were already going to be going through that process to an extent. Mm-hmm. But to me, just this like a 2-hour call once a week, it was like, it seemed profoundly powerful in the way it rippled through my life and inspired change and inspired action and just shifted. And it's like, I think it illuminates, you know, again, and I'm trying to like not be arrogant or egotistical, but it's like, it seems like, wow, this is so powerful. Yeah. It's funny, I think this is the most like restless we've been. I'm sitting here like squirming all around. Justin keeps switching seats. I feel ready to close. Cool. You want to do a checkout?
Yes, do a checkout.
Cool. You want to go first?
No, you go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, I feel good. You know, I feel a little unclear, there's a little grief. Again too, because it's like there's an element of like, well, I see building this and I still don't totally know what that looks like or how that manifests. And there is like, it's kind of a little bit of that like exhaustion of like, oh God, like I don't want to like build this thing on my own. But I also just want to honor the process that we went through and honoring the process that we're in, right? And honoring that letting go of the mystery and just trusting that, you know, holding that space is going to allow the universe to, you know, as you read off that card, right, be that like that enthusiastic lover, right, guiding the way. And so, yeah, I feel really good. Overall, I feel really honored to have gone through this with you, and it's fun. And I wonder if I'll ever watch it again. I wonder if anyone else will ever watch it. I think it's cool that we have it documented. It's fun, and yeah. I mean, I guess the only lingering question is like for me is like, do we want to go anywhere from here? And I guess for me, I'm sort of like, well, let's just let it simmer, and as and when we feel called to connect, we can. And I would be more than happy to engage in another process like this. You know, I don't think we should start like next week. I mean, we could, but I do think that it'd be good to let it simmer a little bit. And so I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are on sort of where you want to take it from here. If there's anything else that needs to happen to close the container for the moment. I think just for me, it's just that expressing the gratitude for going on this journey, thanking you and the spirits and the guides and all the things that led us and allowed this to happen, and honoring all the beautiful work that we did in this process.
You know, I'm really feeling the power of containers, especially ones that are bound in time. And I imagine like having a system or practice within it makes it even better. But there's something that is so distinct about the safety or the relaxedness of it, but also the natural arc in some way. So I feel gratitude as well. The cards that came out were like conscious connections, again, bring it into form, power of attraction, and then all three cards I gave you yesterday for expansion, aspiration, and synergy all came back out just in reverse. And so, for me, it's like, yeah, I just feel I think time is important. I think a little space and time is important. I think never throwing out what we've learned is something that we're pretty good at. So like maybe like letting it go, but not throwing out it if it's relevant. So we know that these containers work, and I think that recording has been a really important step for us because there is a form and something that does exist, and there's like an artifact that isn't just within us, and that seems really meaningful. Um, I think I had that question about what is that one thing that truly, truly, truly I can focus my life on. Um, and it's not really the process to get there. It's not really like what the outcomes of it are. It's like truly that thing. And even presence and human connection to master ground visions isn't quite it yet. It's more true, and it gives me a great orientation toward how to show up. But it's not necessarily the the inspiration or the fire itself. And so I think in my time apart, um, in this hermit time, that's what I'm listening for, and and I'm trying to not disconnect from everything that is important to me. I'm actually trying to like show and express that process, stay open and vulnerable in that way. But I think that's what I need to know, or what I want to know. That's what I'm listening for, and I imagine that if I can patiently sit in that not knowing, um, it'll become really clear. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
All right. Well, if you tuned in with us from the beginning, thank you. If you're just joining now, you missed everything. So,
And still thank you.
and still thank you. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hope someone watches this someday, and if not, it doesn't really matter either.
I might.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Justin, and you can always reach out to me if anything comes up. Just anything. I'll be curious to hear more about the house cleansing at some point if you want to share, and if anything more comes up there.
Cool. I will.
Fun. And, yeah. Have a great rest of your Sunday.